Have you been thinking about moving to Roseville for all the big city perks, but thinking that maybe the small town feel and mountain access of Auburn might be more your style? Then this video is for you. I'm going to compare these two communities in a town versus town head-to-head showdown across 8 critical criteria. So by the end of this video, you'll know which one's right for your family. So let's get stuck right into it. Criteria number 1 when comparing these two communities comes down to population and area, and these two towns couldn't be more far apart in this regard. Auburn is just shy of 14,000 people as of the recording of this video in the fall of 2025, and about 7.5 square miles, give or take. Roseville is around 150,000 people as of the recording of this video, and just around 44 square miles, give or take. This is a big difference. Roseville is a large subdivision. It is more of a suburban, sprawling kind of town. This is subdivisions, new home construction, and strip malls and big shopping malls kind of a place, versus Auburn is definitely very much a small little mountain town. So they're very different in this regard. However, a lot of people do consider these two communities. They start looking in Roseville and then they think, well, what about that one bump up the hill to Auburn to get a little closer to the mountains, a little further out of town, a little more peace and quiet. And so these two communities actually get compared a lot. So now we're going to jump into the next criteria, which is housing costs. Before we hit criteria number 2, if you're getting anything at all out of this video, hit the like button, click subscribe, and hit that little bell icon so you don't miss a future video to help you with your relocation decisions. All right, now on to number 2. Criteria number 2 when comparing these two communities is housing costs. Look, if you're thinking about moving here, you're probably thinking about buying a home for your family here, and you want to know what it costs. Now, if you're from out of town, you're just starting your research, you're probably thinking Auburn, the small little rural town, has cheaper homes. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that. It would make sense, but that's not the case. Auburn is actually the more expensive of the two. So let's go through the numbers right now. As of recording this video in the fall of 2025, Auburn, California has a median home price of just around $695,000. That's right, almost $700,000 at the median. Now, what are you getting for that median home price in Auburn? You're getting a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, around a 1,900 square foot house on around 0.33, 0.34 of an acre, built in the early 80s. It's going to be maybe partially updated, in pretty good shape, but it's going to need a little bit of elbow grease or a little bit of updating probably to make it what you want. Now, Roseville, by contrast, as of the recording of this video, has a median home price around $645,000. Now, do be advised, median home prices bounce around. You can have a couple big sales, couple small sales in any one month that push them around. But Roseville's been averaging, which is funny to apply an average to a median, but the median home price has been averaging around $650,000 for Roseville for quite some time now. So Roseville at the median is going to save you $50,000. It's $50,000 cheaper at the median to buy a home in Roseville rather than in Auburn. But the story gets even a little better when we look at what you get at the median. So at the median down in Roseville, you're going to still be getting about a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, but a little bit bigger at about 2,000 square feet, but much newer, built in 2002 or newer, meaning the home is going to be in better shape and require less elbow grease and less updating than the home you're buying in Auburn at $50,000 more. There's also a lot of new construction in Roseville, and as of the recording of this video, there's new construction available right around that median home price, so you can be getting a 2025 or a 2026 home pretty close to that median home price at some of the new builds in Roseville. If you're willing to have a 0 lot line house with an 8-foot strip of a backyard and be able to hand a beer out the window to your neighbor through their window, you can get that new home in Roseville around the median. So when it comes down to home prices, it's a little bit different than you think. Auburn is actually more expensive and you get a little bit less for your money in Auburn than you do in Roseville, except when it comes down to property or lot size. And I think this is really what pushes a lot of people into rural areas, is wanting to have that breathing room around them, not wanting to be able to hand their neighbor a beer out the window like that, not wanting to look right in the window of the house right next to you, and wanting more than an 8-foot strip of a backyard. So at the median in Roseville, you're getting a home on about a 1/10 of an acre lot. Now in Auburn at the median, you're getting a home on over 3/10 of an acre. So lot sizes that are 3 times as large as the ones in Roseville. So you're paying $50,000 more, but you're not getting nothing for that $50,000. You're getting a lot that is 3 times as large as the one down the hill. Now, do be advised that Auburn is in the foothills. As such, it is steep hill country. So you are probably not getting a third of an acre flat, completely usable ground. It's going to be hilly, but it's still a buffer from the neighbors. It's still more room for the kids to play on, for the dogs to play on, to have other kind of animals. Maybe you want chickens and goats and things like that. You're not going to be running cattle or having sheep or horses on a third of an acre, but you could have some chickens, you could have some goats, you could have a few dogs, and lots of room for the kids to play. So if that's something you're looking for, Auburn would get the win there for your family. But if you're looking for the newest, most updated home you can get for your money, then Roseville would get the win for your family. Right about now, you're wondering who I am and why you should listen to me about Auburn, Roseville, real estate, or anything at all, really, and that's a pretty fair question. My name's Rich Curtis, and I've been selling homes in the area for over 20 years now, in markets ranging from the Great Recession to the COVID market insanity and everything in between. So when it comes to real estate, I've got you covered. My goal with this channel is to help you make the highest quality decisions you can from the comfort of your couch. So to that end, let's jump right back into our list comparing Roseville to Auburn so you can decide which community, if either of them, is right for your family. Criteria number 3 when comparing these two communities is lifestyle, and this is a place where they do differ. Like I said before, Auburn is a small mountain town and Roseville is a larger Sacramento suburb with a bunch of suburban sprawl. So Auburn is centered around a small historic gold rush downtown. They do have a little bit of a suburban sprawl feel in the shopping district down Highway 49, but for the most part, once you get out of downtown and off Highway 49, you've got little rural houses out in the trees and out in the country. By contrast, Roseville is all going to be houses in neighborhoods, planned unit developments, and your shopping is going to be in strip malls and that sort of thing. Now, depending on where you come from, maybe you're coming from LA or the San Francisco Bay Area, and the sort of suburban sprawl and strip mall scene feels comfortable, feels like home to you. So that might not be a bad thing. But if you are moving to a suburb of Sacramento looking for more space around you, more air around you, then Roseville's not going to cut the mustard there. You're going to have to head up to Auburn. When it comes to lifestyle, also, I would say, and this is an intangible, but you can feel it in the communities, Auburn just has a slower pace of life. It's a smaller little mountain town where people are taking more time for their family, taking more time for recreation. There's not as much go, go, go status, buy the bigger house, buy the bigger car, keep up with the Joneses kind of lifestyle that there is down in the burbs in Roseville. So if you've been looking for more of the kind of town where you know your neighbors, you run into people you know at the grocery store, and where people are a little more focused on what they're doing with their passions and their free time than on career and money and go, 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 then Auburn might be for you. But if you're the type of family that has a kid in every one of the sports, they're in basketball, baseball, volleyball, all of it, they're in every extracurricular activity that the influencers on Instagram and TikTok told you they need to be in so they can get in a good college, and you are busy and career driven, no judgment, but Roseville's going to be a better place for that kind of family than Auburn. So it just comes down to what kind of a lifestyle you're looking for. Now we're going to dig deeper into lifestyle, including recreation, types of recreation, and all of that later in the video. But I think the biggest difference for this section is, are you looking for that small town Americana feel, or are you looking for that suburban access to everything, better job opportunities, higher rated schools, and access to every kind of extracurricular activity your kid could ever want? Roseville is going to get the win there if that's what your family's looking for. Criteria number 4 when comparing these two communities is recreation. Now, this is my favorite one in all of these town versus town videos. If you've been watching the channel for any amount of time, you'd know that although I've been in real estate for 21 years now, in my past life, I was a raft guide and a mountain guide, and what brought me to live where I live in Placerville, which is a very similar town to Auburn, just on the Highway 50 side, is the outdoor recreation, and specifically adventure recreation. So I love this section. And these two towns are very different in this regard, but do be advised, there's only a 45-minute drive between the two of them. So if everything about Roseville lines up for your family, but you like the recreation that's in Auburn, well, it's only 45 minutes away. Or vice versa, maybe you want to live in a small town in Auburn, but you're a golf guy and there's a lot better golf options down in Roseville, Rockland area. Well, it's only 45 minutes away. So you can pick your poison here in terms of which community feels better for you to live in. and still get the recreation from either one of these. But let's go through the differences because they are significant. Roseville, being a suburban area, has more suburban style recreation. They've got, 44 miles of paved biking trails and walking trails through the community. They've got 80 plus developed parks, city, county parks in the area. They've got 6 golf courses right in Roseville, but within a 25-30 minute drive of Roseville, you've got over 20 golf courses you can access, some of them in Auburn as well. But with Rockland right next door, which is a known golf community, and probably in my opinion, for my golf clients, the best community to live in if you're an avid golfer and want that to be a daily part of your life in all of the Sacramento suburbs and greater Sacramento area, Rockland's probably going to be your jam, and that's right next door to Roseville. So when it comes to golf, far and away, Roseville gets the win. If you're, a road biker and you like to ride your bike on those, city bike paths that are paved and all of that, Roseville's going to get the win. If you have young kids and you're not the adventurous type of family that wants to be out hiking and playing in the woods, then Roseville's going to get the win there on city parks for you. Where Auburn shines is in terms of outdoor recreation, adventure recreation. Now, of course, they do have some city parks and they do have a couple of golf courses. Like I said, there's 6 golf courses up in Auburn that are great, but down in Roseville and Rockland, if you can name a creek, they've got a golf course named after it. So it's just a lot better for golf down there. But there's a little in Auburn. But if you love mountain biking, there is the Auburn Bike Park, and there is the Auburn State Recreation Area down at the confluence with amazing bike trails. In between there and Forest Hill, just a 30-minute drive from the confluence, say, there are bike trails that are on the National Mountain Bike Race Circuit. They're so good. It's an amazing place for mountain biking. Great hiking. Whitewater recreation, accessible from Auburn. You've got the North Fork of the American River and the Middle Fork of the American River pretty close by for great whitewater recreation. Not too much further, you have the South Fork of the American River. Now, this is your whitewater rafting, whitewater kayaking, whitewater paddle boarding. This is not for your, weekend folks going out who've never done it before. If you haven't done it, hire an outfitter guide service. Go with a professional. This is real whitewater. But if you're that kind of person, it's on offer for you. Paragliding down in Cologne and Lotus, not too far outside of Auburn, is on offer. There is just a tremendous amount of outdoor recreation. And of course, Auburn is further up the hill, so it's closer to Tahoe Donner, where you've got great rock climbing and where you in the summer and lake recreation in the summer, and in the winter you've got all of your skiing and snowboarding, cross-country skiing needs up there. So when it comes to outdoor recreation, Auburn gets the win. But if you're more of a suburban type of recreation family, then Roseville gets the win. So it comes down to what your family's looking for. All right, criteria number 5 when comparing these two communities is fire insurance. So we've gone from my favorite one, recreation, to my least favorite one, fire insurance. Now, fire insurance is a big deal anywhere in the state of California. We're only 9-10 months out from the LA fires as of recording this video. So fire insurance is going to be a big deal in LA. We've had a lot of fires in the Oakland Hills over the years. Fire insurance is a big deal in the Oakland Hills. Fire insurance is going to be a big deal up in Auburn. I won't bury the lead here. When it comes to these two communities, if you're sensitive to the cost of fire insurance and to daily fire danger, then Roseville's going to get the win. Big tick, hands down. You don't even have to watch the rest of this section. But if you want a more nuanced take on it, here it is. The fire insurance up in Auburn, you can ballpark $5,000 to $6,000 minimum annual insurance premiums. So you're talking, minimum around $500 a month for your fire insurance, and it can quickly go up to $8,000 to $10,000 really easily. And if you're buying a big, expensive, $1 million plus custom luxury home on acreage in a high fire severity zone up in Auburn, you can see $21,000 to $25,000 annual insurance premiums. Now, by contrast, down in Roseville, in these suburban areas, you're going to be dealing with a much more urban and suburban style insurance quotes where you're, down in the, $1,000 to $3,000 a year annual premiums. Normal stuff that you're used to. So that is a big difference. That's a big difference in the cost of living. If you're having to account for, $70 to $150 a month of your payment for fire insurance versus $500 to $900 a month for fire insurance on your payment, that is a big, big difference in terms of affordability. And as we said before, Auburn actually carries higher home prices. Well, now when you factor in fire insurance, that's even higher, meaning your mortgage payment will be lower per dollar unit of home purchase down in Roseville than it will be in Auburn because of that fire insurance piece. So the houses are cheaper in Roseville and you have more buying power in Roseville because the insurance is cheaper. So if your family's on a tight budget and you're sensitive to monthly payments and you have to keep that within a tight range and you want to maximize the amount of house you can get for the given payment you can afford, Roseville is going to win hands down for that. There's also sort of the emotional toll of worrying about fire, which is just going to be a little higher up in Auburn than it's going to be down in Roseville. So if that's something that's going to weigh on your mind, Roseville might be a better choice for your family. Now, of course, whenever it comes to discussing fire insurance in the state of California, you get into discussing the California FAIR Plan. Up in Auburn, you're likely to have most of the houses end up on the California FAIR Plan insurance, and down in Roseville, they probably aren't going to be on the FAIR Plan insurance, and that is a big difference. Now, there's a lot to dig into the California FAIR Plan that's too much for this video. I have several videos on the channel, 3 interviews with Aurora Mullet, a California FAIR Plan trainer. You can find those on our Informed Homebuyer podcast playlist. I have a video of 5 big insurance mistakes not to make that discusses the FAIR Plan as well on the main playlist on the channel. So dig into some of those videos. But a big difference between FAIR Plan insurance and regular insurance is FAIR Plan only covers you for wildfire disaster. So you have to pay for the FAIR Plan and you have to pay for a separate DIC, differences in conditions policy, to cover everything else for your house, including your personal property. So when I'm quoting you should factor up $5,000 to $6,000 minimum for insurance up in Auburn, I'm actually quoting the combined cost of your FAIR Plan and DIC policies with that versus Roseville. You're just getting one traditional policy down there. If you want to dig deeper, check out some of those other videos. If by the end of this video, you still aren't sure if Roseville is right for you or Auburn's right for you, or you might want to think about some other communities and get some personal advice, because let's face it, there's no general advice in real estate that's good advice. Real estate is hyper local and hyper personal. Then feel free to reach out to me via the contact information on your screen and in the description down below. Like I said, I've been selling homes here for over 20 years now. I've helped hundreds of families just like yours decide where to land, and I'm always happy to help. All right, let's jump right back into our list of Roseville versus Auburn to see which one's right for your family. Criteria number 6 when comparing these two communities is cost of living. Now, we've dipped into this a little bit by talking about fire insurance and the cost of housing, but we're gonna go through a few other things now. So of course, the largest line item on your monthly budget is going to be your mortgage, and the cost of homes and the cost of fire insurance for those homes is higher up in Auburn. Now, when you have a higher priced home purchase, you pay more in taxes on that home as well. So your mortgage payment is comprised of PITI, principal and interest. That's what you're paying for the money. And taxes and insurance, that's the TI part. Taxes and insurance are going to be higher in Auburn. Overall mortgage payments are going to be higher. So the biggest line item on your monthly budget is going to be higher in Auburn. So when it comes to cost of living, if you're looking for which community is more affordable, there's a tick for Roseville. All right, let's move on to utilities and the cost of your electricity. Now, Auburn is on PG&E, which is now the most expensive electrical service provider in the state of California. Now, doing a deep dive into the price per kilowatt hour is going to be a little more than we need to do in this video, but suffice it to say that Roseville is on Roseville Electric, and Roseville Electric rates are pretty much half of what PG&E rates are. Now, these communities are hot. Now you can watch, I'll link to them at the end, my pros and cons of Auburn and my pros and cons of Roseville, but you see one thing in common between the two. Both places are real hot in the summer. You're going to run a lot of air conditioning. You're going to spend a lot on your electricity, and you're going to spend half on your electricity in Roseville that you will in Auburn. Auburn's not much cooler than Roseville. You're still going to be blaring the AC, but you're going to be paying double for the privilege, and that's a big deal. Also, PG&E is the least stable power in the state of California. They have the most outages. They have, forced public safety power shutdowns when there's big storms and they think it could cause a fire and that sort of thing. That's pretty much unheard of with Roseville Electric. If you are on SMUD or know of SMUD rates, Sacramento Municipal Utilities District, Roseville Electric and SMUD are pretty much about the same when it comes to rates. So when it comes down to cost of living, that's another tick to Roseville. You're going to pay less than half for your utilities that you would pay in Auburn. Now, let's talk about costs for your vehicle. We're going to get into employment later and talk about employment between the two places, but suffice it to say, it's pretty obvious there's going to be less employment in the little mountain town than there is down in the big suburban town, right? So if you live in Auburn, it's highly likely you're driving to Roseville for work or even further to Sacramento for work. And if you're doing that, that's more gas in the car and more maintenance in the car, and a lot less of it if you live in Roseville. So that's another tick for Roseville. So overall, when it comes down to cost of living, it's inarguable that the cost of living is going to be cheaper down in Roseville than it's going to be up in Auburn. One point in Auburn's favor is the lack of HOA and Melrose taxes. So you have to factor this into your overall cost of living and your housing payments. Auburn, for the most part, are one-off custom homes out in the woods. Roseville is mostly subdivision homes, and especially the newer homes are all in planned unit subdivisions, and they mostly all have HOA payments, homeowner association payments that you're paying. Now, these can be a couple $100 a month or more. A lot of them do have Melrose taxes. Melrose taxes is basically a taxable bond attached to the property to cover the cost of community infrastructure. It's a way builders pass on the cost of infrastructure to the eventual buyer. So this is paying for things like sewers and sidewalks and streetlights and the like. The builder doesn't want to have to pay for it themselves. That cuts into their profit margin. So they slap it as a tax assessment that runs with your property for 30 years and you pay that. I've seen Melrose taxes as high as $500-$600 at times, but mostly they're going to be around $200 or $300 a month. But between HOA and Melrose, you could easily have a $500 or $600 addition to your payment. Now that levels the playing field from the insurance in Auburn, right? So you're going to maybe have $500 more in insurance in Auburn, but you're probably going to have $500 more in HOA and Melrose down in Roseville. So you have to take that into consideration, and that kind of evens out your buying power a little bit between the two communities. But no matter how you shake it, houses are more expensive up in Auburn, power's more expensive up in Auburn, and you're going to have to drive a lot more up in Auburn. And so the cost of living still is a win for Roseville. Criteria number 7 when comparing these two communities is schools. And if you're a parent, this is something that's really important to you, is getting your kid into some good schools and having good schools available in the area. If you're not a parent, go ahead and skip to number 8, use the chapters down below. But for my parents, this one's important. And both communities, I won't bury the lead here, have excellent schools. However, you're going to have a lot more choice in Roseville. That's where the difference is going to be. So if you look at Auburn for high school, you're going to have Placer High School. It's going to get an 8 out of 10 on gradeschools.org, and it's a really excellent school. When you go down to Roseville for high school, you're going to have 4 different high schools. They're all going to score an 8 or a 9 out of 10 on gradeschools.org, and they're going to be great schools. Auburn 1, Roseville 4, just more options. Now, of course, you're not going to be districted into all 4, but there are just more options down in Roseville for you. Middle school is the same story, and elementary school is the same story. Now, being that Roseville is a larger population center and has a lot larger tax base than Auburn, the schools are just going to have more money for sports and facilities and the like down in Roseville than they do in Auburn. I have family at Placer High. It's an excellent school. There is great teachers and a dedicated staff there, and I think you'd be absolutely happy with your kids up there. When you're down in Roseville, there's just more choice. So if you're the family that wants a lot of different options and not just the one public high school, then Roseville is going to be your jam. But if you want the small town community feel where all the kids are going to the same high school and know each other, then Auburn is going to be your jam. Now, if you're looking for alternative education models, alternative schools, that sort of thing, there's just going to be way more options for that in Roseville than there is in Auburn. Now, for my homeschool families, when it comes down to homeschooling, there's going to be great support for homeschooling in both communities, actually. Don't discount the Foothills. There's a strong homeschooling population up there, lots of pods for socialization for your kids. And so for homeschool, you're going to do pretty well in either community. Although for my money, if I was, we're public school people, but if I was homeschooling my kids, boy, I'd rather do it in a rural area where we can get out and play in nature all the time with the extra time we have in our homeschool schedule. But that being said, it's going to be great in both places. The main difference here is going to be in the amount of choice you have and in, like I say, the tax bases and the amount of money flowing into the schools for facilities in sports. So if brand new schools, because with the new construction in Roseville, there are 2 newer high schools in Roseville. So if brand new schools and modern facilities are one of your big criteria for schools, then Roseville is probably going to get the win there for you. But here's the deal. What I recommend to my families always when they're relocating is not to get too focused on that kind of stuff, on the facilities, on the test scores, on the gradeschools.org scores. The problem is when you're coming from someplace else, those are the only data and metrics you can latch onto to try to make a good decision for your kid. But here's the best way to do it. Come into town, get an Airbnb, spend a weekend. We can tour some houses while you're here, but go to the schools and visit the schools. Talk to the administrators, talk to the staff, see if they'll even meet with you and give you some time. That's a good indication right there. Look at the campus, look at the way the kids and the teachers are interacting, and pick the place that feels right for your kid. Because let's face it, all our kids are individual. I've got 2 kids and they're completely different. What works well for one doesn't work well for the other. So it's not about whether this is a really good school, because they're all really good schools in Roseville and in Auburn. It's about whether this is a really good school for your kid, and only you can make that determination. The only way to do that is to get boots on the ground and go to that school and visit and spend a little time there. Now, I recommend you do that before you're even really looking at any houses, because if you find a school you fall in love with, then that can constrain our home search to make sure you get a home that's districted in for that school. So this is a really important step. I've given you the 30,000 foot view. The internet can do the same for you, but the best way to pick the right community and schools for your kid is to get here and go visit those schools. So I highly encourage you to do that. All right, criteria number 8, and the last criteria on our list is employment. And here there's a big difference between these two communities. With Auburn being a smaller rural town, there's just going to be less job options. But depending on the sector you're in, there are great job options. So there is a hospital in Auburn and all the surgery suites and doctor's offices and things that support that. So if you're a medical worker, you're going to have a good chance of getting a good job and being able to live and work in Auburn. Auburn also happens to be the county seat of Placer County, and as such, it has all of the county jobs there. So if you're a county worker, you're going to be able to get a good job in Auburn, most likely, and live and work in the community you work in. Auburn, actually, for a small rural town, has a fair bit of big box retail up there. Sam's Club, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, that sort of thing, multiple car dealerships. So if you're working in retail, there's a good chance you can get a decent job in Auburn and live and work in the same community. There are also a ton of restaurants and breweries up in Auburn, and great ones at that. Some of my favorites, check out Crooked Lane and Moonraker. But there's great jobs to be had in the hospitalities and food and restaurant industry. So if you're a food or restaurant worker, then there's good options for you up in Auburn. There's also a fair bit of schools up there. So if you're in education, you've got some good job opportunities up in Auburn. Anything outside of that, you're going down the hill to Roseville anyway, or all the way to Sacramento, and you have to drive through Roseville to get to Sacramento. So of course your commute's going to be much longer from Auburn to Sacramento jobs than it is from Roseville. So outside of those industries, you're going to have to probably look somewhere else. Now, Roseville has pretty massive health infrastructure down there, of course, with Kaiser down there, and lots of health infrastructure. And they're building out even more health infrastructure all across the Sacramento Valley. So from Roseville, you've got really great access to healthcare jobs. So if you were relocating and you are in the healthcare industry and you didn't manage to lock up that job in Auburn, then Roseville's a pretty good second option, because there is a ton of jobs down there, like I say, with Kaiser and Sutter Health and the like in Roseville. Roseville also, like I said, has a much larger school system, so there are a lot more education jobs. And its proximity to the capital, being maybe just a half an hour or so to downtown Sacramento from Roseville, you've got access to all of the education jobs that happen at the state level down in the capital as well. So there's great opportunities for education there. Roseville also has pretty much every big box retail store you can imagine, plus a bunch of shopping malls. So for retail workers, restaurant workers, the like, there's a ton available down in Roseville. No matter how you slice it, a big suburban town with 150,000 people is going to have more job opportunities than a small rural town with 14,000 people. That's just the way it is. In some ways, this criteria is a little unfair to compare. Like asking Auburn to have the same job landscape as Roseville is like, dinging your Porsche 911 because it doesn't have a big back seat for the kids. It's just not something you can expect of it. But if you're comparing these two communities, it is something you should take into consideration. It's not that bad of a commute, probably about an hour from Auburn right down to the capital in Sacramento. And Sacramento itself has one of the most broad and diverse job landscapes of any major metro in the state of California. So if you're willing to bite off an hour or less commute, either town will get you access to that job market in Sacramento, which is a big plus. But if you're looking for a diverse job market, or if you're the kind of family that's going to move here and find a job second, it's going to be way easier in Roseville. Auburn is not the kind of town I recommend moving to expecting to find a job when you land here. It's the kind of town you want to line up a job in first before you relocate. Hopefully that helps you decide which one might be right for your family. All right, that wraps up our discussion of Auburn versus Roseville. Do you want to live in the little mountain town or in the big suburban town. Which one's going to work for your family? They're not that far apart, and they are a good case study for you to decide what it is you're actually looking for in a community. And I hope this video has helped you decide which one might be right for you. Now, if you want to do a deeper dive into either one of these, you can click this video right here for my pros and cons of Auburn, California. Or you can click this video right here for my pros and cons of Roseville, California. I noticed I dodge my head every time I point up to that side of my videos. I don't know if I'm expecting the video card to hit me in the head or what, but you're going to have pros and cons of Roseville right up there. Now, if you're looking to compare some of the other Sacramento suburbs and towns in a head-to-head battle just like this one, you can click my town versus town playlist down here, and it compares all of the suburbs: Roseville, Rockland, Granite Bay, Loomis, Lincoln, all of that. It's there in the playlist for you. Even Auburn versus Placerville. Decide whether you want to live on Highway 50 or Highway 80. And if you want more videos just like this to help you with the relocation decisions, you can click that little subscribe button down there and make sure to hit that little bell icon. Either way, thanks for watching. Thanks for making it to the end with me, and I'll see you on the next one.